Well, greetings and salutations, one and all, to a new episode of Career Retrospectives right here on the Super Review Show Network. I'm joined by my two incredible friends. Kyle, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Been a while since we did one of these.
Yes, absolutely. And Mike, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm just ready to rock and roll. Do a little AFI breakdown.
Yes. As the title of our podcast suggests, alludes to, whatever you want to think of it. We're going to be discussing and breaking down, doing a career discography breakdown of AFI, the punk band from the 90s into the 2000s up until today. We spun the wheel last time. Kyle, it landed on Kyle's discography breakdown that we wanted to do, and this was, right off the bat, I'm going to say this. I'm gonna let Kyle go first, but I just want to say this, for me at least, this is a very interesting listen through all the way through. But Kyle, since this was your pick, what do you got for AFI as a band and AFI as a punk band? What do you got?
Yeah, AFI has been a band that I've been a pretty big fan of for quite a while now. They are a band that, all things considered, in all honesty, I will say I've been less into them in recent years. Just kind of fell off the bandwagon for a while. So it was really nice to go back, revisit these albums, and honestly, it's something that I haven't listened to in a very long time. So it was really nice to go back, kind of revisit them, relearn them again, and see if I felt the same way. And, as we go through the albums, I'll get into that more in depth. But yeah, it's really, really refreshing. It's a band I've seen live multiple times. They're great live. Met the drummer before. He's a nice guy. So this is really fun. I'm glad that this is the first one we landed on the wheel.
Awesome, Mike. Have you heard of AFI at all before we get going or no?
Yeah, actually, the first actual song that I paid attention to was Miss Murder. I remember seeing it on MTV and thinking, who is this band? And like that, they were kind of older than I expected them to be. I thought it was their first album that they were coming out with, and hadn't realized that they had just kind of previous offerings. I think it was like 4 more albums since that album had come out, somewhere in that range. And never had heard of them, but was like, loved that song. Still my favorite song of their entire, the discography. And yeah, just basically, it was definitely a fun listening, like how it started. So extreme in one style, how it started to, morph into more of what AFI is today. And you get to see the whole ride from like beginning to end, which is really cool. It gives you perspective and an understanding of the changing of time, the changing of music. But ultimately, staying true to yourself is the, that's the question here. We're going to answer it and see, how everybody sees it, the perspective of it, and where they are, where they ended up, and how it all fits into your musical taste. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that's ranked.
And for me personally, my introduction to AFI was a little bit later. I truthfully, I'd never even heard of them until we did our Crash Love review from their 2009 album that we're going to talk about tonight too, more in depth, I guess. Overall, a really good listen, really solid listen overall. I'm very excited to go into this discography breakdown. So if you're listening to us, just sit back, relax, and enjoy. But why don't we go like this? We'll go Kyle, me, and then Mike for each album. Is that okay, guys?
Sure.
All right, cool. Let's get into it, shall we? Let me just share. Let's start with their debut album. Answer That and Stay Fashionable. Kyle, what do you got for their debut album?
Yeah, like Mike kind of touched on briefly there. They're a band, they've gone through so many different styles, and that's something that I've always really respected about the band. Coming from this album being more of that mid-90s, more straight up punk, almost like in a skate punk vein style music. I really like this album. It might be some surprise, but this is close-ish to the top of my list, to be honest. JT, want to scroll onto the track list there. This has some songs on it that are absolutely great. They're all short, so it's an easy listen, but there's such fun punk songs on here, and it's a good time. It's a good listen. It's stupid. It's lyrically not their best record, but it's a snapshot in time, and I really enjoy that. I mean, songs like I Want to Get a Mohawk, but Mom Won't Let Me Get One. It's great. It's such like classic stupidity of back, the early like 90s punk stuff in there. High School Football Hero is a major standout for me on this. Serial Wars. I mean, Davies' vocals on here, they're rough. They're what you expect from that style of punk at the time. And it works well, though. Instrumentally, it's kind of what you'd expect. There's nothing stellar, nothing really standing out as like a major. It's not going to make you like, oh my God, whoa, what was that? But it's fun. It's a really fun listen. I've really come to appreciate it over the years. Like Mike, my introduction to the band was Miss Murder. So like that iteration of the band was my, go-to for a long time. So when I did finally go into their back catalog, this album years ago really didn't do that much for me, but revisiting it now, I love this. This is such a fun listen. It's very well done. It's raw. It's a raw punk, like skate punk record. I honestly put this at my number 4.
All right, you heard it first. That is Kyle's number 4 of our AFI career discography breakdown. Me going into this, I mean, the moment I first heard the first track, Two of a Kind, I have to say right off the bat, I was like, all right, I could tell this is very punk, very, very 90s punk indeed. It almost sounded like a lot of the tracks in here sounded like early Green Day, like they're pre-Dookie Green Day to be specific. It was very, very much like that feel of like Kerplunk or 39 Smooth, for those you know that. It was very much that feeling. And I was like, at first I was like, all right, I'm not sure how we're going to feel about this. But no, I was listening to it over, and these are very, very, very short songs. So if you're looking for a fast, quick, literally about a minute and a half long pop punk song or punk song, this is definitely a great album to get into. Personally, I actually didn't realize that there was a Police cover in here until actually just saying that now, but I had no idea. That's actually kind of cool. I didn't realize that until after the fact of it. And there was what was it? Just a really fun listen to. I actually this getting into their and them as a band and as an artist, this truly has won me over a little bit. It is not, but it's I was taken back by the punk sound of it, and I really did enjoy a lot of what I heard, though. Truthfully, I didn't put it as high as number 4 as Kyle did, but their debut album, currently on my list, ranks at number 5. Answer That and Stay Fashionable was my number 5 for AFI, right here, right now. It's just an overall fun listen. I was really taken back by how much this band could really, sound like just true, almost like true punk, almost like the Ramones or the Sex Pistols, the Clash. Just but fast, really short songs, really fast, short songs that just are a lot of fun to listen to. Mike, what do you got for their debut album?
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of I wouldn't say a hot take, but it's going to be a little bit of I'm going to explain why it is where it is, because I have a sound that I know AFI is, and I want them to be. That's the core. Those albums have the highest ranking. As you go out to where they drew their influences from, those albums are going to be lower down because, in my opinion, the first albums were where they were developing themselves and figuring out who they were. We all go through that thing in life where we're trying to figure out who we were. You're trying to gain influence. The pure form is always crude, and the more blended form of different sounds that come from different influences is always more of the polished and more mature variation of the band. So because of that, this is my last ranked album. Now, don't take that as like a shocking thing. It's more about these songs all beat on the same drum. They all beat on the same kind of they hit on the same note. They don't have much variation. They don't really showcase the writing skills or any of the other things you employ when you do music. They mostly do one thing and do it very consistently. So taking from this album, in my eyes, I took a couple pieces that reminded me of AFI. I'm like, all right, I'm starting to hear some AFI things, but I don't quite hear enough of it to really feel that this is a cohesive album of many different kind of influences. I liked what they were doing. I liked where they're coming from and what they're bringing, but I know there's better things to come. So, like the year for Ramen Nama Lama, whatever, ramen noodle, whatever the heck that is. That was a good one. Some groovy bass lines. You got your typical punk stuff. Those vocals which don't have too much melody in them that are, I'm still looking for the more blended experience. This is just kind of, it's almost like watching a historical movie of the beginnings of something and saying, that's how they started. More so to that, listening to each song, they all kind of became one, and when that happens as a continuous listen, it's a fatigue. So so it's just my last rated, just because of its consistency in not being able to branch out.
All right, you heard it here first. That is Mike's number 11 out of all their 11 albums. Let's. I'm not gonna keep doing that because we're gonna get to our final ranking towards the end of the stream and the podcast. So let's jump over to their next album, shall we? If I can pull it up here, forgive me. I'm downstairs and the washing machine is on. That's what that noise is. Let's see. Proud of Ya, the second studio album by rock band AFI. Let's go jump back over to Kyle. Kyle, their second album. What do you got for Very Proud of You?
Yeah, this one, it kind of just maintains and builds a little bit on that first album sound. I mean, they're only about a year apart in release, but it doesn't really do much that the first one, it doesn't do much different than the first one did. To that effect, I will say, spoiler on this, that first one is the highest out of their highest ranked on my list of those early punk records for the band. I think that as it went on, it got a little tiresome with the songs here. JT talking about that track list. With songs that are so short, it's totally fine to have a lot of them. But when you have so many on one album here, this one felt like it blended together way more than the first one did for me, to the point where I start to get album fatigue about halfway through this one. There's a couple of re-recorded ones on here that I don't think really change much from the original album that they were on. If anything, I think that the originals were better. But, that's just me on that. This one, it's like I said, it doesn't really build on much. I wish it did a little bit more. Like Mike said with the last album, you can kind of hear some inklings of what's to come in this. Lyrically, it's kind of more of the same, just goofy things. I mean, it has songs like I like File 13 quite a bit. So there's songs in here that I could take away from it, but not as much as I take away from the other one. I don't revisit this one all that often out as a whole album. So this one lands for me at number 9.
All righty. Yep, you heard it here first. That is Kyle's ranking there. For me, their second album, it almost was a copy repeat, but I liked it a tad bit less than the first one. Needless to say, I'm not gonna get too technical with it, but I will say it is kind of, to me, almost it felt like a copy repeat for whatever reason. And I will admit, I mean, as Kyle just said, so some of the same songs that were on the first album are on the second album too. I'm gonna butcher, but Your Rendam, whatever it's called, or there's other ones on here that are just from the first album that are now on the second album too. I mean, I guess my only guess is that they may have needed more songs. They needed to fill a certain runtime. I mean, that's my guess. I don't know. We may never know. But it is a lot of copy repeat here, truthfully. I still like it though. I one thing I noticed was, at least on Spotify, the last song, for whatever reason, was 15 minutes long. I don't know what that was about, but that was actually
Hidden track at the end.
The hidden track at the end. Thank you. I didn't know exactly what that was specifically, but I was like,
a lot of the early albums had that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was going to mention that too, was regarding their earlier albums. They actually had a lot of the fact that the last track was 15 minutes long of just punk song after punk song. I was like, oh my god, so they did that spoilers, but they're the first 4 records, and I don't dock them a point for that or think that negatively of that. I just think that they could have done more here and there. But needless to say, that I liked what I heard overall. This Very Proud of You actually sits one below than me. It sits number 6 of my career discography breakdown for AFI. I like this one, but not nearly as much as the first one. The first, because whenever, just harkening back to the first one for a second, the first one, whenever you have a debut album, it kind of sets the tone and the mood for most artists, and then they diversify their sound a little bit or stick to a same sound here or there. Unless you're a band like that, this just goes experimental during a certain decade or a certain time period. That's a different story. But no, this one is this is my number 6. Very Proud of You is a very number 6 on my ranking. But Mike, what do you got for their second album, Very Proud of You?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat a lot of what we're saying. It's pretty much the same kind of thing. It's just a repetitive, the punk riff, the attitude. You can start to hear once again some of the change up in the melody of the vocals. You start to do a little more memorable thing there, but again, it kind of falls on that same issue of just one note, kind of, nothing really else brought into the mix. It's actually exactly where Kyle has it. It's at 9. That's interesting that you put it there. So I'm gonna copy you there. It's on my 9 spot. So yeah.
Wow.
But you start to hear, like, once again, every album you start to hear a little more of like the bigger picture of what's coming to the what's the next offering. So it is kind of cool to listen through and see where we came from.
Definitely. All right, let's jump over to their next album, shall we? Let's jump over to Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes by AFI, their third album, released on November 11th, 1997. So 95, 96, 97. We got a pretty good track record here, Kyle. What do you got for their third album?
Again, just kind of keeps on going with this trend. And, having 3 albums in 3 years, there's not much time if you're just pumping out songs to develop more on a specific sound. So with this, we do have a slight change into more less out of that skate punk style and slightly more into some little bit heavier but not really aspects that are in here. So kind of more, you could see where they were going to be going in those like 2000s years, slightly more on this. But again, it's just more of the repetitive nature that we got. By this time in the listen through the discography, I was getting kind of burnt out on the albums and just kind of the more and more of the same. JT, if you could go to the track list again.
Sorry about that. Yep.
I mean, there's not really much on here that I return back to be honest. I think that the first 2 albums do what this attempted to do significantly better. I don't think that there's too much on here that is, I don't think there's anything on here that I would point to and be like, this is peak AFI, this is a quintessential AFI track. I'm not saying it's bad. One thing about this band is they've been, throughout their career, a very consistent band with releases in terms of, I think, outside of a couple albums that we'll get to later, I think quality has been a relatively consistent thing for them, where albums are still good. Like, I don't think they have a single album I would consider bad. With that said, I do put this one at number 11. This is my least favorite release of theirs, mainly because at this point, I think it's been too much of the same thing. I do see where a slight change was going here, less of that skate punk, more of the leaning into almost like a Misfits type inspiration sound. I think it's something they would go on to perfect in future releases, which we'll get into, but it fell flat on for me on this one. So yeah, number 11.
All right. Jumping over to me for a sec. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to echo too much. I'm not going to repeat too much, but I'm in a very similar boat with Kyle on this one. It is, at this point, it's been 2 or 3 years since your debut album came out, and you're starting to already have a lot of repetition, a lot of very similar feel, a lot of similar punk attitude. No, normal punks. It's almost like the first three or four records in their. When we get to the fourth one, we'll see what happens in a second, but I need to say with this one, it was just like more of copy or repeat. I don't really find much with it. However, the punk stuff did resonate with me well over listening to it, truthfully. So believe it or not, you might think this is crazy, Kyle. I don't know if I don't know where Mike's is yet, but this one for me is like definitely a number 7. Truthfully, it's right down below the so 5, 6, 7 right there, right off the bat. There, this is a really it's like, as I said, their debut album was very good. Then the next album was like, all right, it's good, but it's not great. And then this one's like kind of just following in a similar pattern there. So, but needless to say, though, I still enjoyed it. But would I go back to it in a year or 2 years? Probably not, truthfully, because it's just something that's just not memorable. And there's not much there to really grasp or froth at the mouth of, musically speaking. But I still liked it nonetheless, though, overall. So I put it number 7, truthfully. Mike, what do you got for this album here? Shut your mouth and open your eyes by AFI for their third album.
Yeah, this they did kind of integrate a little, like almost felt like a little grunge, maybe a little just like goth rock, whatever. But ultimately, with the forgettable vocal lines, and then the repetitive punk rock, kind of just a continuation. It was a little bit of a chore to get through. This whole thing kind of felt like one continuously repeating, kind of regurgitated piece of music. Definitely getting the vibe that they were looking to branch off into something a little more, maybe closer to like maybe a New York City hardcore style, but missing the mark on that, and appearing to just kind of regress, in my opinion, in the maturity that they should have arrived at this point. Like most people begin to write songs, begin to just flesh them out a little more and have a song that has some length to it, and it just seemed like this was just indulging in that sound that scene that they're in. So yeah, this was actually right towards the bottom. It was number 10 for me. It was right alongside their first album, in my opinion. It's just, you're still waiting for them to you could have taken their first 3 albums and cut out half the tracks that were just filler and build a solid album in a 3-year span. You shouldn't be pumping out albums faster unless you absolutely have material that needs to be heard and bring something new to the table. So you could probably do that with the first 3 albums and come away with like a solid piece of music, but ultimately just not much else added to the table here. So number 10 for me.
Number 10 for Mike. Kyle's taking notes back there just to keep track of everything. He's going to show everything at the end. All right, let's jump over to their next album, which is not the Fire Inside EP. 1 second. Let me jump back over here for a sec. Black Sails in the Sunset. Give me 1 sec. Let's share this tab instead. Here we go. All right. Yeah, I mean, Kyle, what do you got for their 4th album in May 18th, 1999? What do you got?
Yeah, it's again, not to reiterate much, but this is kind of them. I will hand it to them for their credit here. It does expand on the sound the most that they've done so far, but that's really not saying much at this point. It's still more of the same. The intro to this, first time I think they've had like a cool intro. It's still a pretty iconic intro in the fan base to this day, and it works well. It's a nice integration into the album, and I think that this is not generally my style of like the punk genre, but it's not bad. It's done well. At this point, they've leaned more into the Misfits sound and the horror punk style than skate punk. That's almost non-existent here at this point. It's done well, but again, at this point, I'm just kind of ready to get to the next chapter of their career. This is a slight start to it. I do think that the Fire Inside EP that predated this album, I personally prefer what was on that to this. I think that this genre tends to do better on an EP level, where it's not so much, because there are some good songs on here, but there are also some that unfortunately are just filler, and that's just to kind of kind of a just an aspect of the genre that this is in. As I go along, I just kind of feel that album fatigue sit in, and it sits at number 10 for me. I know there's a lot of fans that this is like they hold this album in very high regard, and like I said, it's not a bad album. I still like the album, but at this point, I'm just ready for more.
Not to simply just reiterate what Kyle said, but I actually am in a very similar boat. I put it a little bit higher than you, truthfully, but needless to say, though, I did enjoy it though overall. Maybe a little bit more than you. I'm not sure exactly where, we're gonna find out in a second, but where I put it. But basically, this album, it definitely was a precursor for what was to come. I definitely liked that feeling. I liked that vibe of it, and I liked how they definitely started to dive into a different, started to test the water, started to get a little more creative, a little bit more dark, a little more this. They're trying new things on here, slowly but surely. However, though, it doesn't, for whatever reason, it just didn't hold up as much as I thought it was going to. Like as a higher ranking, I actually put this one at number 8, only because it was the precursor, but it didn't, for whatever reason, for me personally, it didn't jump to that like 4 or 5 spot, or not 5, that 4 or 3 spot for me. But I still enjoyed it though, nonetheless. But it was a little lower in my ranking, so I'm putting it at number 8 for Black Sails and Sunsets. Mike, is there any redeeming hope for this last, or precursor, I should say, to the next part of their catalog?
There absolutely is, sir. With absolutely fantastic artwork on the album cover, with a finally branching into a more of a melodic choruses that are very catchy and that really kind of go along well with the stark contrast between the dark musical passages that bring you kind of thematically along with the lyrics and the theme of this album, as well as just the atmosphere. This is an absolute atmosphere album. As I listened to this driving home on a rainy night, the music it was just the guide alongside of that. Really enjoyed this album, listened to it a bunch of times, and was like, wow, and you don't get tired of the punk moments because they sit well alongside the atmosphere and the grungy kind of dark feeling of this album. Yeah, I was actually shocked. I was gonna text Kyle and say, Kyle, this album is absolutely awesome, but I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to ruin my feelings on the album. This is my number 2, guys. I know that sounds crazy, but it really was. It took me back to a time when punk was sitting alongside of other elements in the rock genre and able to thrive together, rather than in the first 3 albums just beat you to death and not allow you to even come up for air. This thing did exactly what I wanted it to do, and at times it definitely went too far and had some filler here and there, but it kind of always came back to musical passages where they were just playing music by itself. There wasn't just constant vocals alongside of it. It lets you sink deep into what it was offering. And that's not something a lot of bands do much these days anymore. It's very algorithmic, in the sense that it's just okay, this is we start with this, we do this, we end with this. There's no pause. So yeah, I think it was absolutely a great album and one of my favorite of the whole catalog.
Big words from Mike right there, ladies and gents. Big words from Mike. Needless to say, let's jump over to their next album. Let's jump over to let's see, what is it? Oh, The Art of Drowning. In 2000, September 19th, 2000. Again, I'm sorry about the noise. We're doing laundry around the house, so forgive us here. Kyle, what do you got for The Art of Drowning? The album, their 5th studio album.
Excuse me, Mike. I love that praise on the Black Sails album there.
Yeah,
Not what I expected that in your list, but I'll take it. It is a very good album. But Art of Drowning, this is where I think it's their first truly fantastic album. I enjoyed everything that came before it. To me personally, I like Answer That and Say Fashionable a little bit more than this one on a personal level. But I think like songwriting wise, this is when I think the band started to come into their own, find their what would ultimately be considered that AFI iconic sound. I think a lot of it originated through this album. Davey starts to sing more on here rather than just the typical punk yelling style that he'd been doing prior to this. Saw a little bit of that on the previous record, but this one kind of turned it up more. I love to hear that. I mean, the guy's a great singer. Songwriting wise on this, it's nice to hear more going on. And this does continue to have those dark themes that started on Black Sails but carried over onto here. JT, again, go to that track list and I'll do that real quick. I mean, on this, I think one of the classic AFI songs to me, the Nephilim, absolutely great song. Best song that they've done up to this point in their career. What a catchy track. Days of the Phoenix, classic song from them too. That whole run with Days of the Phoenix all the way through 6 to 8 is just so good. I really love this. It brings in some slower aspects on it as well. This album actually, excuse me, this album actually sits at number 6 for me. You gotta excuse me. I'm a little bit sick this week, but this album, it number 6. I think it does its job very well. This is the first record that I think is what I consider that iconic AFI sound that people would come to know and love and would eventually blow them up. But this is where it started. You could really see the songwriting start to take shape here. Not that the songwriting was not good before this, but this just really started to elevate it.
All right. Well, again, I don't want to reiterate too much here, but this one is just like, man, oh man. There's a lot of stuff I could really say about this one right here with the Art of Drowning. So it's funny. Like they really buckled down. They finally, after 4 albums, they finally realized what they can do and what they're capable of, and it just really, to a T, really did a number and did a fantastic job with this one. I am actually, man, oh man, this might seem crazy actually. I'm sitting, where is this? I'm looking at my list. I'm trying to figure out where I put it. One sec. The Art of Drowning. You think I'm crazy, guys. This actually sits at number, where is it? I can't even see it. Sorry, I should have brought my glasses. Forgive me. This is, for me personally, this is sitting at number 4. This is a solid album overall. It made me want to get into them more as I was going throughout the career discography breakdown that we've been doing. It made me want to get to know them more, get to know their catalog more, and I was ready to learn more as time went on. I was just, give me more. I'm ready to go. Mike, where does this Art of Drowning album stand for you personally?
It's actually interesting. It definitely started to really come together with the songwriting, and that was something that, if there's something I can mimic, echo, constantly beat the drum on. As I'd gotten older, I remember listening to albums and being like, yeah, that album was so cool. And then I come back to it like 10 years later and I think, man, it kind of like really just didn't ever arrive at its point. It just did a lot of flashy things, but it never arrived at its point. This album arrived at a point. It started to really solidify their sound, start getting stuck in your head. Days of the Phoenix. Yeah, like there literally was a lot of songs on this that I really enjoyed. Now, I am guilty of not liking the albums that have too much of the punk rock sound on them. They never really reach the highest of the high unless they ultimately blend some other styles, and like Black Sails did for me, that just really made it feel special. It wasn't a special album for me, but it definitely felt like a developed album for me. An album that they thought about more so than just like impress their friends with. Like, hey guys, look how hot punk rock we are. We're gonna just kick our foot through a window and play like the same three riffs as fast as we can. It felt like they finally kind of, like got away from that and moved on to like a more just mature sound here. So for me, this one, sorry, let me get to my list here. This was a 6, actually, Kyle. I hate you. Because so far Kyle and I both have 6 and 10, I believe. The same. So yeah, like not quite reaching the top. Like I said, there's some albums that are coming up that took other elements of rock and blended them with the punk rock that I prefer over top of like the all punk rock album that this one feels a little more leaning towards. But yeah, 6. I mean, still solid. Still an album that has a lot of memorable moments on it.
All right, that's Mike's rating. Let's jump over to their next album as I pull together our live stream here for a second. The Sing the Sorrow from AFI. Oh, as I pull it up 1 second, here we go. Yeah, their 6th studio album by AFI. In 2003, March 11th, 2000. So literally about 22 years ago, this came out around this time of year because we're doing this in March of 2025. So, yeah, crazy. Kyle, what do you got for Sing the Sorrow?
I mean, it took 6 albums, but here we are. I mean, this is the album that really blew them up. It sounds great. It's their best produced to date up until this point in their career. It almost completely does it. Not a complete 180. It's not turning a punk band into a pop band or anything like that. But I mean, we're taking a band that went from like skate punk to horror punk stylings to now we're just doing. All right, now we're a early 2000s emo band, and damn, they do a great job at it. This is the first album of their career so far that I legitimately love every song on this record. With the exception of the intro, this album started a weird trend where a majority of intros to their albums I don't care for. Other than that, I love this album. I think that this is so well done. I mean, it has classic songs. Girls Not Grey, one of their most iconic songs. Dancing Through Sunday is just a crazy good, crazy well-written, quick song. Silver and Cold, I mean, Davy's vocals on that really shine. Leaving Song Part 2, also really good. But then there's some more like deep cuts on here. Like Death of Seasons has some really cool electronic elements going on in it that haven't happened up until this point in their career, and that'll come back later. But it builds upon their sound in a way that almost completely reinvents the band. I mean, you see Davey doing actual singing vocals on here, carrying melodies and doing a damn good job at it, in addition to adding some harsher screams into the mix. I think this is lyrically where the band started to really hit their stride as well, from a storytelling perspective with lyrics. I think it does a much better job than previous ones did. This is where I think what I think a lot of people would consider the golden age of AFI starting, and for good reason. This sits at number 3 for me.
Well, to quote our other podcasts we do here at the Super Review Show, Kyle and I have swiped right at number 3. Yeah, this is an incredible album. I was someone was on an AFI who never really knew who they were, and when custom we're gonna do AFI, a career discography breakdown of AFI. I'm like, oh my god, this is great. We're gonna I'm gonna get into a band that I've heard one album by, but I'm gonna hear the other 10 that they've done. This is amazing. I don't want to reiterate too much what Kyle said, but he kind of hit it on there. And I will say the hidden tracks of the spoken word or This Time Imperfect are all just fantastic too. But there are some really solid, strong songs on this album overall. I love it. But it's not my number 1. But I put it number 3. Needless to say, I was in shock. I love it when albums can surprise the listener by saying, "Oh yeah, remember like I love it when artists like they put out an album, so either mid their career or like later in their career, and it just takes you by storm. You're like, oh my god, what this exists? Like it's almost like if like an 80-year-old artist or a 70-year-old artist of a certain time period put out an album like in 2022 or 2024, and it just needless to say that I really enjoy this. I'm not going to go on too much, but yes, this is my number 3. Sing the Sorrow is my number 3 on the AFI albums list. Mike, what do you got for AFI and specifically for Sing the Sorrow? This album right here, bud.
Yeah, this was definitely an about face to songs that are more focused on the the style than they are to deliver a sing-along chorus. Like there are so many big sing-along choruses on this, so many change ups from what they're originally doing. Like Kyle was kind of saying, it really is the showcase of all the elements that are going to come together that are going to make AFI really who they are. The typical little things that he does with his voice, they start to come straight to the front. This is actually one of the albums I owned. I didn't even own the one with Miss Murder on it. I owned this album, and it had some real earworms in it, and as well, it's kind of nice to hear a song with a like a the Dancing Through Sunday where it has electronic beat, dance beat kind of thing go on, and have it not become their entire genre like bands today where they use one dance beat during a song and then create an entire name out of it. They like AFI seem to be really getting the hang of pulling a couple different styles together and embracing their love of the sing-along emo kind of movement. Like standout tracks got Girls Not Great. I mean, obviously that's like the best song on this. Even from I do disagree with you, Kyle. I do like the intros. I like that first song. While very repetitive, it repeats a lot, but it's one of those songs I remember listening to a long way. Just straight across the board. Paper Airplane's another great song. The Celluloid Dream. Yeah, like this one was a fun one to listen to because from the beginning to end, it had something with just totally fun to listen to, memorable to listen to. This is my third. I hate you, Kyle, because we're not supposed to agree with this. We're supposed to have an inverted pyramid. You're supposed to be everything is top to bottom, but here we are. Like
so far we got 3.
We're aligning, man. We're aligning.
So. Number 3 is our alignment. We all are on the same page about this. This is fantastic.
It was the blood moon. That's what it was. The blood moon.
We'll get to that in a minute. So. No worries. No, but this is you heard it here first. That's Mike's rating at number 3. Let's jump over to their next album here. If I can pull this up really quick. Here we go. Hold on one second. In June of 2006. They released an album called Decemberunderground. Kyle, again, you're our AFI guy. What do you got for this one?
I mean, this is the one that I think introduced most people to AFI. I mean, outside of, Sing the Sorrow blew them up in that emo music at the time, that whole scene. Miss Murder blew them up in the mainstream. I mean, just from being the music video being played on, Fuse and MTV back in the day constantly. That's how I found it anyway, was that music video playing on TV. Outside of that, it was in Guitar Hero, I want to say 3 it was in, which was massive at the time. This really did leaps and bounds for their career here. Also, just got to shout out the album artwork on this. It's my favorite album artwork that the band has had. I like the goofy stuff from like the late 90s, but this one, it's so sleek looking and it's iconic looking. It's great. But this one, I mean, Miss Murder, absolutely iconic song. One of, if not their best songs. Undoubtedly, I don't think there's any question about that. But I mean, the intro to this one, I do love this intro. This is my one exception on that, I guess. It's good. His voice on this just sounds incredible, better than it has up to this point too. Kill Caustic, starting with his like harsh vocals on that, just being his like kick in your teeth song to kick off the album is amazing. Love Like Winter, another standout on here. Kiss and Control, The Killing Lights. I mean, there's just this album front to back. It's absolute gold. It's an incredible release from the band. Everyone's playing great on it. He sounds great. There are a couple songs, nothing's without a couple missteps here and there. I think Affliction goes on a little bit too long, to mention one. But, overall, this is a really great album. It's iconic. I have great memories with it growing up. It puts it at number 2 for me, even if it's just from a nostalgic standpoint, but it still holds up. Going back listening to it, it holds up significantly better than I thought it would outside of the hits. Even the deep tracks hold up incredibly well.
All right, we're jumping.
We won't agree there. You already put your number 2.
Yeah, sorry. No, yeah, it's all right. No, but yeah, this is. It's funny. As things progress more and more, for whatever reason, I'm on a slightly different pattern here than I'm not sure where Mike's going to be, but I'm a little bit of a different pattern than Kyle here. This one, I liked it overall, but it didn't. For whatever reason, listening to it from start to finish in their discography order too, it just didn't hold up to me as much as I thought it was going to, coming off of Sing the Sorrow from 2006. From 2003, sorry. This one is just, I like it. There's not a bad album by them, in my opinion, whatsoever. There's not a bad album by AFI. This one, though, unfortunately, I have to put it at number 9, only because for whatever reason, it's not bad, but for me, whatever reason, listening to it more, mentally, it took a dip for whatever reason. I'm not sure why it did, but it just did for whatever reason. And it just didn't hold up the way I thought it was going to, coming off of Sing the Sorrow. That might be me personally, a me thing, but outside of that,
did you tune out at the yelling on the second track?
Sort of, yeah. Not gonna lie, but it's the yelling and. Sorry, I hate to be that guy, but
the one song that has that, or the one of like 2 songs.
Yeah,
for our listeners, JT has PTSD to when someone screams on something. Someone screamed in his face when he was young, so he's like, ah.
Yeah, no, that's actually a true story.
So
yeah, no, I'm not even joking when I say that either. But anyways, needless to say, though, this one is the scream, and as they mentioned, and this is, for whatever reason, this one just didn't hold up as much as I thought it was going to. So unfortunately, I had to put it number 9. I hate to be that guy because I still liked it overall, but it was just didn't hold. There were parts like some clunky parts here and there, like the screaming got to me. So I'm like, okay, that's enough of that. PTSD kicking in. No, but Mike, what do you got for December Underground?
Yeah, it was interesting with this album. They upped the intensity in certain areas, the vocals, the screaming. I thought that was really cool and almost reminiscent of some of the more, like, as the bands who are entering the genre of emo and screamo, I guess you could say, they were kind of seemed like they were kind of aligning with that movement. Like memorable, like wise. There are some interesting groovy kind of riffs on this album, almost reminiscent of Crash Love in a lot of ways. Like I felt like they could have been a companion to each other in the sense that it almost feels like they started that on this album with those groovy kind of like riffs, but didn't fully execute it to the level in a song that I felt overall was like hitting a home run, but more so just batting, like a two base run, like you can hear it, but it's just not able to execute it the way you like it. But I mean, still a great album. It's got lots of, it got lots of things going on. It's got a lot of, change of pace. It's not boring. It doesn't do the same thing over again. This was an enjoyable listen. I never had this album, but I did have Miss Murder. I did have one other song off this album, that I would listen to. I think once in Love Like Winter, but overall, it's a solid album. It's up there in the top of their albums. I put it at 4. It's definitely, it's just the album that makes you think of AFI. You just really, it's part of that collective. So but they still, in my opinion, I think Black Sails was able to really pull it all together and execute it a little bit better, but still this one belongs in that higher group of albums. And we lost JT. All right.
No, you didn't. I was just trying to unmute my mic.
Okay.
That's okay. We're doing great. Sorry,
Are you writing your list over there, or is it? Yeah.
No, the washing machine was about to go off. So it's off in a second. No, but needless said, this was yes. There's our ranking there. Let's jump over to their next album, which was after December Underground, which was called an album that we actually reviewed at one point called Crash Love. Kyle, Crash Love? What's up with that? What do you got for this one, bud?
Yeah, I won't go too depth about my love for this album. I mean, we already did a whole episode dedicated to this and track by track and all that. This still, to this day, one of my favorite albums of all time. It is a 10 out of 10 album for me. I think it's the band at their best, production-wise, songwriting-wise, lyrics-wise. Everything about it is all of them firing on all cylinders here. It's one of those rare albums that you can listen to, and no matter what song it is, you can pick out the vocals, the guitars, the bass, the drums. They're all doing something different. They're all coming through the mix perfectly. Everything about this album is great. It holds up incredibly well with each listen. Even going back to it now, going through their catalog straight through, it still stands out to me. I know this is like an unpopular opinion in the AFI fan base, but that's still crazy to me. I get it that it's more of a mainstream sound here that they were going for, but it's so well done and the songwriting is there. You can't argue with good songwriting. A well-written song is a well-written song, regardless of the genre. And yeah, this isn't as heavy or near as heavy as any of their past albums were. This is definitely the softest album to this point, the more pop-oriented here. But I mean, this thing just kicks ass. This is my number one, to no surprise there. Was not surprised going through their catalog that it still reigns supreme at number one. But I mean, even December Underground, as much as I love that album, this one's even leaps and bounds above that. Like, this is in a league of its own for me.
Those are some big words from the K-Man right there. No, I don't want to spend too much light on this too, because we did talk about this album at one point on our show, Retrospectives, right here. But this is just very, it is very like, I don't know. It's just, you go back and listen to what we thought about it at the time. It was fantastic. I don't want to go too much into it, but it is, to echo Kyle's point, so it is very more pop oriented, more pop rock, alternative rock to an extent there. Like just Beautiful Thieves is great. Medicate. Okay, I Feel Better Now. There's some really, really solid tracks there. This might come as a surprise to both of you. This is my number one. Crash Love. It is, when you first introduced me to this album, Kyle, I was like, what? Hey, who's AFI? Here we are doing a discography breakdown. This was a fantastic release by a fantastic band, and it is, I actually go back to a lot of the tracks from this album a lot more initially than I thought I was going to. After many, all these, we did that in 2023. It's 2025 now, so that tells you something right there. I love this record. It is actually my go-to AFI album. If I were to go to one, I'd pick Crash Love. So, but Mike, this is obviously Mike's at number 12. He hates it. No, I'm just kidding. What do you got, Mike? What do you got?
What?
Just kidding.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, like I mean, literally, this album is one of the most memorable albums I think I've listened to in a long while. Like when Kyle introduced it, like I woke up singing this album. Like, and I literally all like would just be stuck on certain songs. It was just such a good, well varied album. Like the production is so good, and I wish the production would continue this way on the future albums to come. But it's weird. It's like they let Jade take production after these two guys had worked with them, and it really shows the difference in production. But this album is, I mean, from top to bottom, it got better and better as I listened to it. After Kyle introduced it, I just continued listening to it, and it just I love the theatrics in it. I love how they, like I said, I like when they do the goth kind of like where they progress off of the main song track to a theatrical kind of like dark kind of horror kind of feel to it. I love that stuff. It keeps you interested in the song and how it's like what it's gonna bring to the table. It almost, it has that dark feel to like Black Sails, but it's like a much more groovy, harder rock feel to like Medicate. Like has that straight a riff bass song. I mean, this is my number one, and like across the board, it's becoming one of those albums that I can really just listen to at any time and not like be bored of it or find a lot any filler on it. It's just it is the best song that they have ever, or their best album that they've ever done. And I'm sure the AFI community is groaning and moaning, but yeah, like it's just, you can't deny that it just has such great songwriting and production and all that.
All right, you heard it here first. That's our ranking for Crash Love. Let's jump over to their next album in their discography, which was Burials in 2013. Kyle, what do you got for this one, bud, for their 9th studio album, Burials?
Before I go into this one, I do need to point out, Mike, that me and you, our only slots left are 5, 7, and 8. We're about to line up 3 more times, and we'll find out.
There's going to be an end of the world, like it's going to be doomsday here if we.
Is AFI the band that unites Kyle and Mike's music taste? We'll find out.
It's possible. It's possible.
But this album coming off the heels of Crash Love on here and a 4-year gap between the two. When this came out, I was so excited for it. I mean, Crash Love was the first full album cycle that I had been a fan of the band, coming in after Miss Murder, after December Underground was out. After Crash Love, I was anticipating this album so much. And when it came out, I don't want to say I was disappointed, but it's not as good as Crash Love. I mean, I don't think I really anticipated anything to meet that. But this album is essentially Crash Love, but darker, with more muddy, atmospheric production going on that I'm not as big a fan of, and that is something that carries over throughout the rest of their records, at least up to current day. It has some really incredible songs on here, but it also falls flat in a lot of other spots. And when it falls flat pretty hard. It has some more like dark pop songs on here that I don't think work. JT, if you want to pull up that track list. But I mean, for me, the major standouts that I really like are the ones that tend to go into that Crash Love sound. Like 17 Crimes is great, Heart Stops, and Greater Than 84. Those are my top 3 of this record by far. I always come back to those. But I mean, I Hope You Suffer is great. And there's some other good ones as well. But I mean, this album, No Resurrection, I think is my least favorite AFI song of all time. I don't like that one at all. I don't like The Embrace. I really don't like The Face Beneath the Waves as a closing track. It just goes some directions here that when it's at its highs, it's really good. And it could be, I could see where it could still be in that upper echelon of their golden age, but I think this is their slope downwards. It's not bad by any means. Like I said, it has a couple songs I absolutely love. A Deep Slow Panic is good too. But for me, this falls at number 5. It's not that big of a departure that I'm like, oh, this is something completely different that I didn't want at all. I was still relatively satisfied with it when it came out. I'm still satisfied with it now. My thoughts on it haven't changed actually at all. The songs that I really liked when it came out are still the songs that I like now. The songs that I didn't like then, I still don't like. It's not one of those albums that's grown on me, over time. It's pretty much middle of the pack, slightly edged out by, slightly edges above some other ones. So put it at 5.
Yeah, for me, it's funny coming off of Crash Love, which was a fantastic album. If you've ever heard Crash Love, I'm telling you personally, someone who's never listened to AFI fully until we did this career discography breakdown and just listen to Crash Love in general, listen to Crash Love. It is a fantastic record, needless to say. This one with Burials, I do agree with Kyle though. It to a T actually. It really is just Crash Love but gone dark. Needless to say, it's not bad. But actually, the things, for whatever reason, it held up as a solid follow-up, to me at least, as a solid follow-up to Crash Love. So much so that I did put it at number 2 on my list. Actually, believe it or not, I put this at number 2 because it's still that, mainly because the sound of it. I mean, the production, yeah, it's a little different. I mean, some of the songs some of the songs don't hold up as much as they would, but I think maybe this is just me personally, maybe just because it was coming off of Crash Love. That's why I'm like, wow, this is just a number 2 album of their discography for me. That's just me personally, but don't want to echo too much what Kyle said. But yeah, I'm in a similar boat, but a lot more of a positive note with that one instead. Needless to say, but it's still a solid record overall, in my humble opinion. That's why I put it number 2. Mike, Burials, what do you got?
At first I thought this was going to be a much heavier kind of just raw album that was really going to change a complete direction. And then it just kind of spiraled into a lot of like the electronic elements, like slow plotting, 80s rock feel to it. Kind of reminds me of something like The Cure would do or something to that degree. My standout tracks were I Hope You Suffer, 17 Crimes Greater Than 84. But at a lot of this album, I felt like it was an identity search for the time that really wasn't able to be fully sold in its kind of in what they were presenting. I heard some undertones of like their previous album Crash Love, like some of those what they were bringing, but the songs just weren't interesting to me. I found myself losing attention, not being pulled in by the choruses, not really finding the parts of the AFI that I really enjoyed. So this one felt a lot less personal to me, a lot less something I could identify with. I like the dark atmosphere of it. It definitely got some cool things going on there. I think they do better on another album coming up than with the sound that they're starting to do here. I think they hadn't fully developed it. They hadn't fully been able to pull it off or sell it. So for me, this is an 8. Kyle, we finally diverge back to the way things were. I can sigh.
Our
the world
standout tracks are all the same.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, it's true. That is true. But it just felt like it's like when someone's ready to do something, but they just haven't truly read the manual and knew how to like make it believable. It just felt like the beginning of what they were trying to do. So yeah, 8 for me on that.
All righty, let's move on to their next. Actually, their second to last 2. Now that I think about it, let's jump over to their AFI 2017 album, also known as the Blood album. 1 second, here we go. Kyle, the 10th studio album by AFI, known as the Blood album. What do you got for this one, bud?
Yeah, I mean, having a self-titled album as your 10th album is always an interesting choice. More commonly referred to as the Blood album, but this one is interesting to me because this seemed like an almost intentional attempt to return to like their roots, almost incredibly heavy-handedly so. This is one that, interestingly, my thoughts have changed a little bit on since it came out. When it came out, I think I enjoyed it more than I do now. It's not bad by any means, but following Burials, where I saw where they were going, and Mike, I completely agree. It showed the foundations of something that could be built on, but maybe just wasn't fully there yet. But I don't think they went for it with this album. I think that they took this and were like, well, people may not like that one so much. Let's try to go back to our roots a bit, but also continue to experiment. There's a couple songs on here I really like. I think Hidden Knives is by far my biggest standout on here. That's one of my top AFI songs ever. Dumb Kids is a standout for me and one of my favorites. It's such a stupid song, and he sounds absolutely ridiculous singing that one, to the point where me and my friend me and Steven always listen to that in the car and mock him making stupid voices on that. But it's so good and it's so fun that it's just a standout. This could have been an EP. This could have been a very good EP with songs like Hidden Knives, Snow Cats, So Beneath You, Dumb Kids, and White Offerings. Great 5-song EP right there. I didn't need the rest of this. I actually didn't really enjoy the rest of this. The rest is specifically the ending. I didn't like She Speaks the Language or The Wind That Carries Me Away at all. Like, I legitimately dislike those songs. And, you know, for me, it's kind of disappointing. And I did start to realize that it was after this album, unintentionally so, that my interest in AFI kind of started to dwindle a bit. And, you know, maybe I thought I liked this album more at the time, and maybe subconsciously I didn't like it as much as I thought. So to me, this one sits at number 8.
Alrighty. My turn for AFI's The Blood album. Yeah, I mean, it's 2017. You know, AFI's Crash Love was in 2009. That, to me, that's their pinnacle. That's their best album, based on my rankings. But I will say, this coming off of, like, you think they'd by them going back to the roots, as Kyle said, but just even doing like almost like a concept with like the blood groups and stuff like that. That's, I mean, it's not. It wasn't as. This is where the downhill grade starts to happen in this discography breakdown, for me at least. It just wasn't that. I don't think it was a bad album. There are some really funny, goofy, songs on here too, like with but man, I hate saying this, but this is my number 11, guys. This is it just didn't hit the mark I thought it was going to. I'm not saying it's a bad album. It still has some good moments on it, but is it truthfully like the pinnacle of AFI? No, at this point I was like, at this point this is their 10th studio album. You'd think by this time they'd like actually get the hang of like putting together an album that's like, oh, let's do this. No, it's just not. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's not good in my opinion. It's very mid level. I mean, it's not bad, but it's very mid. I should say. So I'm putting number 11 for that reason. It's my lowest rated one too. So there's only one spot left. So we'll see where we go there. But anyways, Mike, what do you got for the Blood album?
Yeah, this is another one of those albums for me that just like it starts to do some of its old roots, like I totally agree with Kyle. Hidden Knives, So Beneath You, like they have great choruses to them. They have great song structure to them. They take off that way, but the production sucks on this album. The production is stale. The drums, the cymbals, all the stuff that's integrated behind. They start to do that kind of post-punk, new wave kind of like the cymbal with the stale drum, and you're like, it just all kind of hits on the same note. In a lot of the vocal delivery, it doesn't feel super like captivating or like a dynamic performance. It feels like at moments it does that good. I agree. Hidden Knives is a great song, but it also Hidden Knives. I really would like to hear some of these albums remixed, remastered, and also represented. Actually, Black Sails would be cool to see re-recorded. I've wondered if they've ever do that. That would be because that album has like a crude kind of production to it, but I guess it's meant to be that way because it's an old album and it has like kind of a dark sound to it. But this album didn't need to be that way, and it really just comes off like just unable to really hit the mark. So yeah, like definitely I didn't know what to expect in 2017, to be honest with you, especially after all they've done. This one for me is 7. So that's pretty much it's like right in the middle, almost in the middle of where you're like, I'm glad they aren't doing the punk stuff continuously, but when you're bored with songs and they just don't have that pop feel to them, like production wise, you really have a hard time, like remembering all the different melodies they're presenting on this thing. So.
All right, you heard it here first. That's Mike's ranking. Let's go over to their last album, Bodies 2021, came out on June 11th, 2021. Kyle, their most recent release. It's been 4 years. What do they got, bud? Hold on, we got Kyle.
I think you're muted there, bro.
Kyle muted himself.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry about that. Bodies, what do you got?
What I was trying to say while on mute was this was the biggest surprise that I had going through and re-listening to everything. Because if you asked me before re-listening back to this, I probably would have told you this would have been my number 11. When this came out, I did not like this. I was like, this is not what I wanted from the band at all. But you know what? Going back to it and, sitting with it, I hadn't listened to this since probably 2022, a little bit after it came out would be my guess, other than a couple songs here and there. It's not a bad album. Going back and revisiting it, it brought back some of that dark, atmospheric, more pop electronic stuff that they were starting to experiment with on Burials. And it, to the songs that experimented with that on Burials that I didn't like at all, this album did it in a way that I thought was enjoyable. Production wise, I thought it was better than Burials on a production scale. And I think it's definitely better production than the Blood album. I think that album somehow sounds the worst, even factoring in their punk records. I do not like production on that one at all. But this one sounds good, and it's really cool to hear some of the different things they experimented with on here. JT, you can scroll into that track list. I mean, there's nothing on here. The reason that I don't have it higher on my list is that there's nothing on here that I think hits the strides of certain things that came before it. So this is the only spot I have left, of course, is my number 7. So this is my number 7. It doesn't quite have the hits on here that Burials did. The songs that I liked on Burials, I really, really liked. Thought they had some top tier AFI songs on there. This, while it does have, I actually do enjoy half the songs on here to a decent extent. There's none that I would put on that upper echelon of AFI's tracks, with the exception of maybe No Eyes. That is my favorite on here. But I mean, it has some really cool, almost 80s sounding songs on here, like Escape from Los Angeles. Has some cool just electronic things going on, some more laid back, slower tracks that previously when they've done, I didn't think they worked well, but they did it pretty well here. So all things considered, I was pleasantly surprised to see that this album has grown on me a bit. I actually do not dislike this album like I thought I did. So great job, AFI. It took me 4 years, but I'm back on board. So number 7 here.
All right, I'm second to last. Here we go. Bodies, going into it, I was like, all right, it's been 4 or 5 years from 2017 to 2021 there to release a new AFI album. And while I enjoyed the 80s feel of the synth and the stuff like that, and with the punk rock and pop post punk stuff, to me it melded into something that I wasn't too big on. It was not something I would go back to. Truthfully, I was, given that this is their most recent release, I hope that their next album, whenever they release it, we can review it, of course. That I hope that their next album that they release is a little bit more of a heavier guitar or just a little bit of a different, maybe almost like a Crash Left throwback, or like a Barrios throwback, or a Sing the Sorrows throwback feel, or touch to an album like that. I don't even know if they're gonna. I don't know if they still tour now, but we'll discuss that at the end. But needless to say, this was a very unique listen to say. It does not hold up for me as well as I thought it was. I only have one spot left. This is my number 10, guys. Unfortunately, it's not bad. There are some good redeemable quality songs on here, but overall as a project, I found it forgettable listening to it. I didn't really find it too interesting, and it wasn't really my cup of tea going into it, truthfully. So I set it number 10 for that. Then that's my my album ranking right there. Mike, you're the last one. What do you got for Bodies, bud?
Yeah, this was actually a pretty cool album. I definitely enjoy this style of rock. If it's done right and fully embraced. It feels like, and I agree with Kyle 100%, it feels like they've, instead of just adding an element in and not really being able to really double down on it, they really went for a full embrace with like the post-punk new wave, lots of experiment going on here throughout the album, doing some cool things with like the synths in the back, the different drum beats, the just, overall it's an interesting change in sound. I do wish it kind of blended a couple throwbacks, like the way the Blood album would have something that kind of sounded pop punk-ish muddled underneath the new wave sound. This album seemed to completely stray so far away from it. But I enjoy a lot of the groovy use of the bass, and just the songs are a little bit more tight, well constructed. Definitely less riff oriented, more atmospheric, more kind of focusing on the feeling of the song and the energy it's kind of creating. Standout songs for me: Far Too Near, Dulceria, Looking Tragic. I like Looking Tragic quite a bit. Back from the Flesh did some cool experimental kind of things with some of the vocals and the sounds, and it really is cool to see this band, like Kyle was saying originally, kind of define themselves through the years and really embrace a certain sound. And and like I think I saw an article that said we are not hanging on to things we did 2 decades ago. Like, they're definitely not a band who wants to be defined by what they did, but by what they've learned, and all through music, and being able to take what they've learned and apply it to a fresh presentation. And I think all people who like music are fans of that, because that means that music isn't going to just fizzle out with one idea. It's going to have multiple ideas and multiple lessons, multiple directions, and that only means that music will continue on. If it ever becomes stale and unable to do that, it will die. So I feel like this is definitely a nice embrace of that. It's my number 5. I'm surprised to say that, but I was really digging this kind of album. Very cool driving kind of album, because it's got some cool groove and kind of that post punk or post rock feel to it. So I'm curious about where we're headed after if they're going to put out an album, 'cause it's been quite a bit and they haven't seemed to be doing anything. So we'll see where they go, if they can come back. And then, like I said, I would really like to see them kind of take some punk rock sounds from the first album, but then use it in a smart way that doesn't overuse it, and make it something new. That would be really fun to hear.
I agree with you on that. Yeah. So, but yeah, let me stop sharing my screen for Sexual Cock and share his screen so we can go and share our rating here. It's still pulled up there. Perfect. All right, you're good. You can pull it up whenever you're ready. For those who just listen to us, just sit back, relax. We're almost done here. So, Kyle, whenever you're ready, you could share it, and I got it right here. So here is our, Can you zoom in at all or no? If not, there you go. Perfect. All right. So, Kyle, your AFI career discography breakdown is in order from 1 to 11.
Oh, are you reading it, or do you want me to read it?
You read yours and I'll read mine and make it read his.
Right. I'll go from bottom to top. 11, Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. Black Cells in the Sunset, Very Proud of You. AFI, the Blood Album, at 8, Bodies at 7, Art of Drowning, Burials right at 5, Answer That and Stay Fashionable, number 4, Sing the Sorrow, December Underground, and number 1, Crash Love. The big 3 albums of them right at the top for me.
And for me, my 11 to 1 goes as follows: AFI, the Blood Album. 10 is Bodies. 9 is December Underground. 8 is Black Sails in the Sunset. 7 is Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. 6 is Very Proud of You. 5 is Answer That and Stay Fashionable. 4 is The Art of Drowning. And 3 is Sing the Sorrow. 2 is Burials. And 1 is obviously Crash Love. Mike, what do you got for your 11 to 1?
Yeah, so at number 11, we got to Answer That and Stay Fashionable. Number 10, Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. Number 9, Very Proud of You. Number 8, Burials. Number 7, The Blood Album, AFI, self-titled. Number 6, The Art of Drowning. Number 5, Bodies. Number 4, December Underground. Number 3, Sing the Sorrow. Number 2, Black Sails in the Sunset. And my number 1, and they're definitely best album, Crash Love. We all know it. We all love it. And that's how we roll.
That's how we roll. And thank you for Kyle for coming up with that graphic last minute there, for pulling it up so quickly. The man right there, the man.
Yes.
We want to thank you for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. Thanks so much for tuning into our career discography breakdown, the first one we've had in a little while there. Are we spinning the wheel for the next breakdown, or what are we deciding? I forget exactly what we wanted to do.
I think they had a couple albums come out, so we'll figure out what we're doing.
Yes, we do know that a few albums did come out recently, so we're just which one was it? I forget which one was it. It was
I know Lady Gaga came out.
One.
Did Coheed and Cambria come out, Mike, or is that this?
Yeah,
Friday?
I think so. Yeah,
let
me see.
So those two will be the next two we do: Lady Gaga, Mayhem, and what's it called, Mike? I'm sorry.
Oh, Coheed and Cambria, the father of Make Believe. I think. Checking now. I think it's out. Yeah, it is.
All right, cool. So those are our next two, and then if that we will spin the wheel. We gotta spin the wheel for our last two albums that we did too. We got a lot of stuff coming your way right here on the Super Review Show's Career Retrospectives. So thank you for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. I want to thank these two gentlemen for introducing me to AFI and doing this collaboration and podcast with me. Kyle, thank you so much for this choice. Thank you. And Mike, thank you for tuning in and helping us out as always. Their knowledge is unparalleled. I'm very lucky that I have these two friends on this podcast.
You got it, man. You got it.
Thank you. Yeah, for all of us here at the Super Review Show's Career Retrospectives, please stay safe, take care, and be awesome. Adios.